So what are concessions and why are they important in a negotiation? Well, to start with, concessions, to concede simply means to give up or give up some ground. So concession is a tool in a negotiation, and most people, when you think of negotiation, your mind goes immediately to that specific tactic in a negotiation. That is, you offer one value point, the other party offers another value point, and you give ground in order to reach some agreement between a mutually acceptable outcome with regard to that value. Okay, so with that being said, concession is a tool. It is a tactic that you use to arrive at an agreement in a negotiation. Strangely enough, you don't always have to give concessions or concede anything in a negotiation, but in most negotiations you do. Okay, it does happen. All right, now with the understanding that you're trying to bring the parties together, and oftentimes the parties start outside of a zone of potential agreement. That is, one party wants more money than another party is willing to pay, so that is above their reservation point, so they have to concede in what they are willing to accept to get them within that reservation point and within a zone of potential agreement. So and you have a zone of potential agreement when I am willing to accept as much as you are willing to pay. Okay, that when there's that zone there in between reservation points, there you go. Okay, so now in terms of how you use this tool or tactic of concessions, the things to think about are the timing of it. When should you concede something in a negotiation? At what point in the negotiation is it time to agree to some level of concession? All right. With what frequency are you going to concede? How many concessions are you willing to agree to? Okay, and with what in terms of how close together are you willing to? Are you willing to go back and forth and step down immediately, or do these concessions need to be drawn out over time and across the various interests in the negotiation, or are they dealt with collectively with regard to all the interests together? And then magnitude, okay, at how large are how much are you going to concede at any point in time? Are you going to have little micro concessions that step toward a mutual agreement, or are you going to have one large concession there at the end in order to signal something, such as this is the last concession you're willing to make? Things like that. So again, the timing, frequency, and magnitude can be used strategically as tactics, again, to achieve your objectives. Now, one major objective that you generally attempt strategically in a negotiation is to uncover information about the other side. Things like their reservation point, their aspiration or target point, their BATNA, constraints that they may have, things like that, right? If you can have that information, it gives you some level of advantage in the negotiation. Now, granting concessions and how you make them, and the other side's response and how they respond to your demanded concessions, things like that, that can signal their position. Right? Now, if a party starts making gradually smaller concessions, or they particularly avoid conceding something on a specific interest at stake, well, that can show that they value that interest more, for example. So how you make concessions, things like that, will tell you something about the other side, and you can use them strategically to signal something to the other party. Okay, so keep that in mind. It can be used tactically in that regard as well. Okay, but generally concessions are going to be necessary to reach some sort of negotiated outcome. Okay, without it, parties begin to feel that there is an absence of procedural fairness. And if you'll watch our video on interests at stake in a negotiation, you'll see that the substantive interests are there and they're more easily identified. Procedural interests are perceptions of fairness, okay, in the process of the negotiation. So the other party, if you aren't willing to make any form of concession, they in some situations will perceive procedural unfairness, and it makes them less likely to agree, less likely to concede themselves, and it just hurts the chances of reaching a negotiated agreement. Okay, so keep that in mind with aspects of procedural fairness, and how you use concessions, once again, sets the tone of the negotiation. Quick concessions can make cause an emotional outcome of someone making, I don't know, sporadic or hasty decisions, right? Slow, drawn out concessions allows people to think. It calms the mood down, that type of thing. Large concessions can excite somebody. A concession that indicates it's your last one can change emotion. So again, there's an emotional component there to how your concessions affect the other side in the negotiation. So keep that in mind as well.